For Dallas, their larger-than-life owner, Jerry Jones, is someone that has been known to clock and stand on business, resulted in this post garnering over 5 million likes on Instagram in a matter of 40 minutes. I guarantee you, the pure number of clips that you will see coming out of the stream will be unfathomable. Welcome back to Behold Pop Culture, the show where I take a look at all the top moments across culture every single week and let you know what you should be paying attention to. I would be remiss if I didn't start out this week acknowledging the moment that shook the very ground once this news dropped. None other than the Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce engagement. On August 26th, Taylor Swift dropped an Instagram post with the rose garden-filled photo where Travis is down on one knee, proposing to his partner. Taylor Swift, the global superstar who had the biggest grossing tour of all time, grossing over $2 billion coming off of her era tours, and Travis Kelce, the greatest tight end of our generation and a multiple-time Super Bowl winner, alongside his running mate Patrick Mahomes for the Kansas City Chiefs. Somehow this became a match made in heaven and the closest thing that America will get to a royal wedding. This real-time blend between music fans, the Swifties, and sports fans on the football side resulted in this post garnering over 5 million likes on Instagram in a matter of 40 minutes. It is moving at a pace where it wouldn't be surprising at all to see it end up in the top 3 to 5 posts for most likes on Instagram. Fans erupted everywhere as the singer has talked time and time again about her chase for true love, and it seems like she may have finally found it. If you thought that there were a ton of eyes on the Kansas City Chiefs last season because of the girlfriend-boyfriend relationship that they had, wait till you see how many views Taylor Swift's now fiancé generates on their way to chasing another Super Bowl. Which leads us right to the sports section of the podcast, where the NFL has already started off with a bang before a single minute of football has been played, as America's football team, the Dallas Cowboys, traded the best young superstar defensive talent in the NFL to the Green Bay Packers. Micah Parsons was the type of athlete that you build your entire team around because of the level of athleticism and pure talent that he would display every single week. For Dallas, their larger-than-life owner, Jerry Jones, is someone that has been known to clock and stand on business. This time around, standing on business meant if you aren't negotiating face-to-face with me, there is no negotiation to be had. In lieu of negotiating with his agent, this young superstar has now joined the Green Bay Packers, the youngest team in the NFL, a team that has now consistently demonstrated the ability to not only make the playoffs, but find their next franchise quarterback. Today, that is a man by the name of Jordan Love. With the addition of this defensive star, they are now one of the top teams to watch in the NFL. They pushed all their chips in on this team being dynastic for the next few years, at least when it comes to competing for a Super Bowl. There were always going to be eyes on the Dallas Cowboys as they are the most valuable franchise across all sports. But now, don't be surprised if you start to see headlines boosting the Green Bay Packers' cachet as they start to inch closer and closer to consistently breaching beyond the world of football as one of the top teams in sports. But that wasn't the only major thing taking place in football this week. As we get into the quick hits of things that took place in sports, the biggest one was the college football season kicking off, one of which was the debut of Arch Manning leading the Texas football team. Arch Manning, yes, that is a family member, the nephew of Peyton and Eli Manning, the two Hall of Fame Super Bowl winning quarterbacks from the NFL. With that massive target on his back being his last name, all eyes were on Arch to demonstrate that he is the next in a strong legacy of football players, specifically quarterbacks, who will perform when the lights were bright. Unfortunately for Arch, his team drew the defending champion Ohio State University football team, which meant that it was a slugfest, a defensive masterclass. This was not by any stretch of the imagination the most entertaining football game that you've ever watched, but it was one that showed that maybe you should pump the brakes on anointing someone the next big superstar just because of their last name, as Arch struggled to find the consistency that was needed to overcome a great football team on the other side. He missed open passes, then made amazing plays, but at the end of the day, the Ohio State Buckeyes were consistent on both sides of the ball, whereas Texas was only consistent with their defense. Excitement is continuing to build for football as the seasons are kicking off, and it might have overwhelmingly taken on the timeline and made you miss the fact that the US Open is also taking place. One that's featuring the superstars, Sinner, Djokovic, Venus Williams returning, Coco Gauff, Naomi Osaka, and many more. Carlos Alcaraz, the best young player in tennis, has continued to be dominant. He's advanced to the round of 16 without dropping a single set. Novak Djokovic, one of the greatest players of all time, has been battling with injury, but has still made his way throughout the tournament. By the time you hear this, the massive matchup on the women's side of Coco Gauff versus Naomi Osaka will have concluded, but that very well may be the match of the tournament to watch. Now, with those being the main things that took place over the past week in the sports world, the NFL season will have began by the time you next hear my voice. So I want to talk about some of the biggest storylines that you might want to keep an eye out for as the season begins. These are the top 5 storylines to watch for the NFL season. Starting with number 5, Shedeur Sanders, the son of Deion Sanders, was arguably the biggest name in college football last season. Not only because he was expected to be one of the top players drafted, someone in contention for the number 1 overall pick in the NFL draft, but because the team that he played for, Colorado, featured him alongside the eventual Heisman winner, Travis Hunter, a player who both played on the offensive and defensive side of the football game. With all eyes on him, as you would imagine, there were media outlets pushing him as the best quarterback that you've ever seen, and some pushing him as the most overhyped quarterback that you've ever seen. With such a wide range of opinions flying back and forth, it was impossible to predict what the actual NFL owners would do. He was a flashy player, but he also showed flashes of being potentially elite. Going into the draft, the general consensus was that he would at least be a first-round pick, maybe early second. What ended up happening was that he got drafted in round 5, and he was the second quarterback that his team, the Cleveland Browns, took in that draft. For most people, that would mean that you would be lucky to even make the team, let alone lucky to play any type of meaningful football in your career. For Shedeur, because of how massive his brand is, the amount of eyes that will be watching if there's even a single snap that he plays in the NFL are massive. So for the Cleveland Browns, they just want to get through this season. They don't have the most stellar roster in the world. Most people would say they don't expect to compete for a Super Bowl. In the back of many people's minds is the chance that Shedeur shows something in practice, giving Shedeur that opportunity, and his strong, adamant supporters will be there hoping that he finds a way to succeed. The fourth biggest storyline is the one that we've already spoken about, the Green Bay Packers, a team that is known for rarely ever having a bad season. Now with a ton of young players, a defensive superstar on that side of the ball, and debatably their quarterback of the future, can the Green Bay Packers elevate themselves into the conversations of the teams that you'll be hearing the most about? Kansas City, Philadelphia Eagles, the defending champions, the Buffalo Bills, the Baltimore Ravens. Can they elevate into those conversations? The third biggest storyline of this season will be Travis Hunter, the Heisman winner that played with Shedeur Sanders. He is a player that would have been a top 5 receiver in the draft and a top 5 cornerback in the draft the defensive side of the ball, the Jacksonville Jaguars traded up to the second pick in the NFL draft so that they could jump other teams and get what they believe could be a generational talent entering the NFL. This is something that you just don't see in any sport that has an offense and defensive side that is individually split apart. You usually get one or the other. You get a pitcher and you get a hitter. Until recently, we got Shohei Ohtani. You get a quarterback, you get a cornerback, you get a wide receiver, you get a defensive end. Getting both, there's so many questions about, will his body be able to handle it? Will he actually be NFL level good? Because maybe he was just taking advantage of college level players. So many questions will loom, but if he comes out and is immediately elite on both sides of the ball, get ready to hear the most outrageous takes that you've ever seen about this player being one of one, an all-timer, must-see TV. He will catapult into a level of superstardom that we haven't seen in a while. Outside of, a player who's engaged to Taylor Swift. The second biggest storyline of this NFL season is Aaron Rodgers making another return. 2 years ago, Aaron Rodgers, someone who was right there with Tom Brady of being the top two quarterbacks of their generation, he went to the New York Jets with expectations to be an MVP level player coming to a franchise that has had anything but that for years. Unfortunately, his stint came and went in a matter of minutes. As his very first game that he played, he tore his Achilles a couple minutes into the game, ended his entire season. He returns last year, and fans built their hope up again, hoping maybe, just maybe, with the advancements in medical technology, he could be back to that MVP level of himself. And what happened? He wasn't. And the team wasn't very good. And the team didn't even make the playoffs after all of that hype that they built up. So they decided to part ways with Aaron Rodgers. And many people thought after that, being in his 40s, maybe it was time to hang him up, and the next time we'd see him would be going into the Hall of Fame. But he decided otherwise. He has decided to return again, this time for another storied franchise in the Pittsburgh Steelers. So for Aaron Rodgers, this is a more stable franchise, and one where if he is still Aaron Rodgers, this team has enough to make the playoffs. Super Bowl, maybe calm the talks on that, but he could answer a lot of questions regarding his legacy if he comes back now 2 years removed from his Achilles tear and shows the NFL once again that he's one of the best quarterbacks who's ever done it. Now, the clear, above all, number one storyline heading into the NFL season will be the Kansas City Chiefs once again. Patrick Mahomes looked terrible in the Super Bowl. They lost to the Philadelphia Eagles, even though they were favored by many, and a lot of questions were looming. Travis Kelce looked like a much worse version of himself, maybe because, as he has claimed, his focus wasn't as much on football as it previously was. The team offensively had the worst stretch that we've seen since Patrick Mahomes played a game for the Kansas City Chiefs. Some people are saying he's no longer the best quarterback in the NFL. Some people are saying that their offense has been figured out. And many people were saying that they were getting lucky on their way to the Super Bowl. Depending on where you stand, you can be right or you can be wrong. But what is guaranteed to be the case this year is they have to go and prove it again. Patrick Mahomes has to prove again that he's the best quarterback in the NFL. Travis Kelce has to prove again that he's still a top tight end in the NFL. Andy Reid, their head coach, has to prove again that the offense has not been figured out. So the Kansas City Chiefs, even coming off a ugly loss in the Super Bowl, still have to be one of the top three teams in the NFL, still have to be a team that you consider as a Super Bowl favorite, and it remains to be seen if they will go and cement their legacy. Patrick Mahomes, this is a person that many people were already deeming the greatest football player they've ever seen. If he is that, and he hasn't even turned 30 yet, we need to see that once again. For the music side of the podcast, there was one major album release that dominated the talk for pop culture music. And that was Sabrina Carpenter dropping her new album, titled Man's Best Friend. Sabrina Carpenter has risen to superstardom, with Espresso likely becoming one of the biggest songs that we'll see in the 2020s. And that was accompanied with that album performing very well, with her being able to sell out arenas across the country. And now she comes and returns a little over a year later with her new project, one that started controversy way before this album release, because when she showed the cover for the album, it was one that, for all intents and purposes, was provocative. Sabrina is one who's known to challenge some people's beliefs around femininity, and someone who embraces her personal opinion on it with the way she dresses, the way she talks in her music, and the way that she interacts with her fans at her shows. But for superstars like that, all news, good or bad, gives them a boost. So now she returns with this 12-track album that's featuring her disco, pop, R&B, country mixed type of sound, teaming up with producer Jack Antonoff, who has collaborated with Taylor Swift on a lot of her more recent music. Sabrina continued to touch on topics around heartbreak and desire, relationships, power dynamics, and pushed for her most provocative work yet, again, beginning with the album cover itself. Some critics are praising her for what, in my opinion, she is most known for, which is mixing humor with vulnerability in the lyrics that she delivers. And some people have questions about whether or not this reaches the same heights of her previous work, as she's leaned more into that humorously vulnerable style. Regardless of where you stand, this is another notch on her belt, cementing her as a pop culture superstar in music. The other major story in music is the meteoric rise of the movie K-pop Demon Hunters that Netflix made and now put into movie theaters. Not only because it's become one of the most viewed movies on Netflix, this movie geared towards children, not only because it's further pushing and cementing the influence of K-pop in the global music atmosphere, but also because the music has been so wildly popular that it is now taking over the Billboard Hot 100 charts. The song Golden from that movie hit #1, the #1 hottest song on Billboard. That's how many people are listening to it. While it might be a small cultural microcosm of the growth of K-pop music that some people don't fully grasp the impact of, it's also highlighting the influence of these fictional characters when they're backed by a well-told story and actually popular music. There are going to now be multiple generations of children and teenagers who grow up on K-pop music being one of the major genres in the mainstream, something that is relatively new to the music world. It's especially gaining ground when you consider the fact that there's much less mainstream American artists who are making music specifically for children and teenagers, while K-pop is continuing to dominate that demographic both overseas and in America. It's an interesting strategy, and one that seems to be working, as these artists are coming over to perform in arenas, in Lollapalooza, for example, and selling out crowds. If you aren't familiar with the rising impact of K-pop, I would highly suggest doing a little bit of reading into understanding what's taking place in this side of the music world. That brings us to the film section of the podcast, where this week there was no major movie releases. But in the social media side of things, there were two major events taking place that you might have missed. Cenat, arguably the most famous Twitch streamer in the world, announced that he will be streaming Mafiathon 3. And what this is a live stream where he goes for 30 days straight, no breaks, with all types of events planned. His previous iteration of this took place last year in November, where he streamed for 30 days straight, featuring celebrities of all different cloths of popular culture, from Kevin Hart to SZA to Drewski to Marshmello to Good Luck Charlie's entire cast, if you're familiar with that formerly popular Disney show. He brought people from all different sides of pop culture and is someone that honestly represented what Behold Pop Culture is in its essence. So as you can imagine, there's a lot of excitement for him doing another iteration of that, this time the third and final one of the trilogy. The second one generated over 700,000 subscribers within that 30-day period. At the time, the record for Twitch, 700,000 plus people paid money to watch his stream without ads. It also averaged 120,000 people watching at all times, peaking with him having 600,000 to 700,000 concurrent viewers watching his stream. This stream begins September 1st, which means if you're hearing this, the stream has begun. And I guarantee you, the pure number of clips that you will see coming out of the stream will be unfathomable as he strives to push for his biggest goal yet, 1 million subscribers during this 30-day stretch. He recruited Michael B. Jordan in his trailer to help him come up with the idea and announce it in a Mafia-themed trailer, and he confirmed that if he does hit this, he will be cutting all of his hair off. So I'm sure that his strong, passionate fan base will be showing up to try and help him hit this enormous, extremely difficult, and likely something that will never be broken accolade for ages. Simultaneously, the person that Rolling Stone ranked as the #1 most influential creator in the world, IShowSpeed, is doing his own 30-plus day stream, this one being titled Speed Does America. Speed is known for traveling to other countries and spending days there interacting with local culture and fans of his in these various countries, but he's never done it to this extent in the country that he's from, America. This time it will be his longest and most ambitious project yet. 35 days across multiple different states, streaming nonstop. No one, not even Cenat himself, has done something this massive, streaming in multiple different states consecutively for 30 plus days. Events featuring already people like Tom Brady at these events. The amount of effort that is going into a stream like this has to be something that you could not even begin to imagine. And the amount of viewership that it will garner from the clips to the people watching it live will also be massive. But the real question is, will these two, between Speed and Kai, cannibalize each other? Because there is overlap in their fan base, and there's even overlap in people who are just trying to see pop culture take place, that just want to see history being made. Will people have enough attention to watch Speed and Kai simultaneously make history? That remains to be seen. And maybe that's something that puts more pressure on Kai, who set this concrete goal of 1 million subscribers, for him to actually accomplish it. These streams will be fascinating to watch to see if these two young budding superstars can accomplish what they've set out to do. Last, but certainly not least, is the gaming side of the podcast, where it was rather quiet this week. No major announcements regarding the consoles, no major new games being announced. The only thing I wanted to call out was a highly anticipated game being released called Metal Gear Solid Delta Snake Eater. Metal Gear Solid is one of the most iconic video game franchises of all time. One that features a main character named Snake going on these stealth missions in a relatively anti-war type of storyline as he goes as a secret agent trying to avert crises across the world. This one was a remake of the 2004 game Metal Gear Solid 3 that is one of the franchise's most popular. For that reason, many people were excited to get a chance to play it with these upgraded graphics now 20 plus years later. Some people consider that 2004 version the best game that franchise has ever put out. It has real political messaging, pop culture reflection, great gameplay, and characters that develop in a complex way throughout the story. So if you see any headlines related to this game and people being excited about it and playing it, don't be surprised. They're getting a blast from the past. And with that being said, we come to the conclusion of today's podcast. Thank you for listening. You are now equipped with all the top cultural events that took place over the past week, and I look forward to talking to you again next time. This is Behold Pop Culture.